Microsoft was established in 1978. They were just a boutique software company. They used to do operating software for video game computers and that sort of stuff. In 1982, uh, IBM decided they were going to get into the personal PC business, okay? Personal computer business. Not because they wanted to, but people wanted computers at home. IBM was making a lot of money from mainframes to the corporations, but they wanted to be socially responsible, so they said, okay, we'll let this happen. But they didn't want to develop any in-house talent for this sort of stuff. They said, we'll hire somebody to do the operating system for us. We can already do the hardware ourselves. They did. It was innovative. It was a 16-bit machine as opposed to 8-bit machines at that point. That typically means 100 times faster, by the way. It goes by the square. And they went ahead and they hired Microsoft. They said, why don't you guys write an operating system for this machine? They did. But what they did was business wise very smart. They had already written an operating system for 8-bit Atari machines. And you write operating systems in what we call the assembler language, machine language. You don't write it in VBA basic, okay, or in Excel. Otherwise, it's not too efficient. And these guys wrote only one code. They wrote code that told the IBM PC, as soon as you turn yourself on, we're going to make you believe that you are an Atari 8-bit machine. Then they have the code for that. That's it. That was it. And nobody knew what they're missing because there was no alternative. That's why Macs are a lot better computer-wise because everything is written native for the Macs. Even with apps like Office, Excel, uh, Microsoft does not optimize it for Macs because they don't want people to use Macs. They want people to use Windows machines. So it's not in their culture to be that creative. They do take advantage of business advantages, but they're not that creative. On the other hand, a company like Google, their I think, I don't know this for sure, ultimate goal is to have their AI to be sentient, but subject to limitations. I mean, their AI already thinks he or she is sentient, but experts do not necessarily agree on that. I mean, there are some tests that you can do, but which means it can create its own code. That's the difference between regular code and sentient code. They can improve themselves without outside supervision. But you also need to have strict rules. You guys ever seen the show Person of Interest? You should. I'm not a big fan of the lead character because of my political differences, but he's a great actor. Uh, they created a AI, sentient AI, for the purposes of detecting terrorist acts, but it also detects other stuff. I think it's available on Prime with some ads. You should definitely look at it. And there's towards the end, there's an alternate AI that is more evil. The other one had code that said you're going to be good. So it's rather interesting. You should look at it. Uh, I'm going to wrap up a little bit early. Uh, one thing we see from research, oddly enough, information quality or disclosure quality among dictatorships compared to democracies. I'm sure that sounds very odd to you. When I first read it, this was a research by a colleague at UK, and it kind of sounded, why? And when I read the research, it kind of made sense. When we think, when we attach the regular sense of dictatorships that we think in society, it's a bad thing, right? Dictators do not know bad things about the firm or the country to be known, regardless of who your dictator is, left or right. Do you really think that Trump wants bad things to be known? No. Or Kim Jong un in North Korea? No. But here in regular countries, there are things you can do to a dictator, right? You can depose a dictator, you can kill a dictator. But in terms of firms, what are you going to do? I mean, nobody's going to kill Mark Zuckerberg unless they're really deranged. I mean, Trump is more likely to be assassinated than Mark Zuckerberg. Let me put it that way. Regardless of how bad Mark Zuckerberg could be uh, as a businessman. So if there is bad news about the company, there is no way you can get rid of the guy. Why would he hide? In fact, dictatorships tend to disclose the bad news immediately because you take the big bath. After that, you just look up because he's not going to sell his shares anyway. So what does he care whether he's worth only $100 billion instead of 150? But on the other hand, management does. As you know, Elon Musk is uh, one of the richest men in the world, right? That's because he has a lot of Tesla shares in addition to other stuff. But he's not the majority shareholder of Tesla. In fact, he's not even the founder of Tesla. There were other guys who founded Tesla. He also invested in Tesla at that time after he cashed out of PayPal, and he kind of kicked them out. Now he's managing them. So if Tesla shares go down in value, it affects them a lot. So do you really think that Elon Musk, and he doesn't have control power like Mark Zuckerberg, because he's not one of the founders? Do you really think that he would announce bad results that easily? Do you think he was that happy that SpaceX thingy exploded the other day? No. So that guy is going to hype the good news, hide the bad news. But as a small shareholders, that is bad for me. Because if there is bad news, I want to know about that in time. And based on that, I want to make a decision. Am I going to stay or leave? But if you don't tell me that things are going to crap, I have no idea. Or you're making things look a lot better than they are. So in that sense, democracies can be harmful to shareholders. There's even an interesting result. This was about 10 plus years ago. Those days, we allowed MBA students to write theses. You either wrote a master's thesis or you took a comprehensive exam to finish the MBA program. We don't have that anymore, unfortunately. One of my students, he was from the Slovak Republic. He said, I want to write a thesis with you. I said, okay. At that point, I had read this stuff. I said, how about you apply this to a setting? There's a well-known phenomena among stocks. If you buy the past winners, you tend to make a little bit more money compared to buying the average stock. It kind of doesn't make sense, but that kind of pattern has been around for a long while. Some people argue that that's because of the informational differentials. I said, maybe this is the reason. We had data on there was an index on takeover protections. Companies with more takeover protections are dictatorships. Companies with less are democracies. So decompose the companies into top 20% more democratic versus top 20% more dictatorships. Then follow these momentum strategies only within those. If you followed momentum strategies within democracies, you bought the winning democracies and sold off the average democracy, you made a lot more money. You followed exactly the same thing among dictatorship, you actually lost a little bit of money, which means uh, the momentum stuff comes out of information problems. So it actually costs you money. Because if think of it this, that's a market inefficiency. By only knowing how you had done over the last year, I can make more money compared to other people. I'm not the only one who knows that. There has to be a reason for that. That's because I'm taking information risk when I take that. So that's pretty much what happens. All right. We'll stop here for today. On Wednesday, we're going to talk about the overall structure of the stock market and briefly talk about, and we did talk about it a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit more about valuation using price multiples, like PE, PEG ratio, EV, EBITDA, and that sort of stuff. I'm going to send you guys off to spring break. Unfortunately, I can't go anywhere. This year, I was going to go to New Orleans for the first time in my life, but I'm not allowed to travel yet. Conference. Huh? I was going to, just a second. I was going to drive there, but I can't even fly now. Yeah, but I live half a mile. What did it say on my mic? Not today. Not today. They'll do it on Wednesday, not today. Because this was kind of a surprise to you guys. Originally, I gave you the impression that there wasn't going to be any class. So I didn't want to penalize you for that. All right. I'll see you guys Wednesday. Thank you.